A grim start in year 2 as viewership craters. Damn. Unrivaled, the nascent 3-on-3 women's basketball league is off to a shaky start in its second year. The league, which has a slated goal of providing elite women's basketball players an alternative.
The lights are on, the cameras are rolling, but nobody's watching. Unrivaled, the 3-on-3 women's basketball league that was supposed to revolutionize the game, is hemorrhaging viewers at a catastrophic rate. We're talking 75% drops in some time slots. Opening night pulled 175,000 viewers. By the second weekend, 71,000. For a league backed by TNT, featuring some of the biggest names in women's basketball, those aren't just bad numbers. They're a death sentence. And now, whispers are circulating that TNT might be...
Office Sports on Wednesday, Unrivaled's opening slate of games on January 5th averaged just 175,000 viewers across TNT and TrueTV. 2 additional games on opening day that only aired on TrueTV averaged 32,000 viewers. From there, the numbers
looking for the exit, while a mysterious rival called Project B could be swooping in to steal the spotlight. This isn't just about ratings anymore. This is about betrayal, survival, and the future of women's professional basketball hanging in the balance. Let's rewind for a second. Unrivaled launched with a clear mission. Keep elite women's basketball players stateside during the offseason instead of forcing them to fly halfway around the world to play in Turkey or Russia just to make ends meet. Noble goal, right? Give these athletes a domestic alternative. Pay them well. Showcase their talent on a major network. TNT.
Let's go to the part we all want to know. Quote, "We're building Unrivaled for the long game, and we're confident in our outlook, keeping in mind the same core principles and goals we set forth when establishing the league," Unrivaled CEO Alex Bezel told Front Office Sports. "We're proud of the product we're putting on the court each week and are going to continue growing our audience while showcasing the best women's basketball players in the world."
Signed a 6-year media rights deal. Big names like Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier signed on. Everything looked perfect on paper. But here's the thing about paper. It burns fast. Year 2 was supposed to be the proof of concept. Year 1, you get a pass. People are discovering the product, building awareness, working out the kinks. But year 2, that's when you prove this thing can actually work. Instead, Unrivaled is watching its audience evaporate in real time. January 5th, opening day, they averaged 175 across TNT and TrueTV. Not great, but manageable.
The breeze and the mist when it combined 1 for 26 from the 3-point line. I'm looking on Twitter and I'm seeing bloopers of these. They're still falling all over each other. We're still doing the mic and I don't know what's going on.
Then the additional games that only aired on TrueTV, 32,000 viewers. 32,000. You could fill a small college arena with that number and still have empty seats. And it hasn't gotten better. The ratings have flatlined. And in the brutal world of sports media, flatlining means you're already dead. Now, Unrivaled CEO Alex Beasley is out here doing damage control, calling it the best product on the court, talking about building for the long game, staying confident in their outlook. Meanwhile, social media is absolutely roasting them. The mist and the breeze combined to go 1 for 26.
We'll probably get Unrivaled the bleep out of here. I gotta be honest. Paramount would most likely get Unrivaled the bleep out of here. Netflix, on the other hand, they'd probably like a message like Unrivaled to be on their platform. I'm just being honest.
6 from the 3-point line. 1 for 26. That's not basketball, that's a blooper reel. Fans are posting clips of players literally falling over each other. Technical difficulties with microphones cutting out mid-game. Sloppy turnovers, low energy. This is year 2. The year you're supposed to prove you've ironed out the problems, not double down on them. And here's the kicker. Tiger Woods' made-for-TV golf league, TGL, is pulling 3 to 4 times Unrivaled's audience. Let that sink in. People would rather watch Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy hit golf balls indoors than watch elite women's basketball players compete. That's not a knock on golf. That's a damning indictment.
That Project B is not going to be getting the top players. Just, if there is a Project B, just something tells me the top, I don't know. It just reeks of scam to me. It reeks of, let me just wash some money off real quick. Just reeks of, let me just launder a couple, it just reeks to me. If it comes out and it's a real thing, I'll believe it. But as of right now, I'm taking everything Project B comes out with a grain of salt. Everything Project B announces, I'm taking with a grain of salt. So is it going to conflict with proposed start date? Yeah, I guess. Is there really going to be a Project B?
Of how badly Unrivaled has fumbled the execution. But the real drama? It's happening behind the scenes. Warner Brothers Discovery, TNT's parent company, is in the middle of a messy sale process. Netflix and Paramount are both circling, trying to buy the company. And when new ownership comes in, they're going to look at every asset on the books and ask one simple question. Is this making us money or losing us money? Unrivaled's got that escape clause in their 6-year deal. TNT can opt out after 3 years if the league fails to gain traction. We're in year...
will start March 26th and end April 4th. The 5-on-5 league is planning a global series of tournaments in Europe, Asia, and the Americas. It's likely that the Tokyo stop will be one of the league's last before players return to the WNBA. Let me say this actually as a side note. Let's say there is a Project B. Nothing would make me happier than the WNBA owner saying, oh yeah, you're in Project B. You can't come over here late. You can play in Project B, but you're going to be here for the...
2. And the traction isn't just missing. The league is actively sliding backwards. So, what happens if Netflix wins the bidding war? Honestly, Unrivaled might survive. Netflix loves prestige content. They love things that generate social conversation, awards buzz, cultural relevance, even if the actual viewership is modest. Unrivaled fits that profile perfectly. It's progressive, female-focused, features big names. Netflix would absolutely throw this behind their paywall and promote it as part of their sports expansion strategy. But
the league and WNBA Players Association are currently in a stalemate in discussions for a new collective bargaining agreement. The union is still waiting for a response to a proposal they submitted close to Christmas, according to sources familiar with negotiations. Whoa. The union is still waiting for a response to a proposal.
But if Paramount wins, game over. Paramount is in full cost-cutting mode. They're shedding expenses left and right, and a vanity project pulling 70,000 viewers isn't making the cut. If Paramount takes over Warner Brothers Discovery, that opt-out clause gets triggered faster than you can say bankruptcy, and suddenly these players are scrambling to find somewhere else to play. Which brings us to the elephant in the room. Project B. If you haven't heard of Project B, buckle up, because this might be the most suspicious venture in professional sport.
That proposal's not happening. Hey, maybe if I just don't answer this for long enough, maybe they'll just send something a little bit more serious. In that proposal, the players are seeking a $10.5 million salary cap and roughly 30% share of league gross revenue. According to sources familiar with negotiations, the WNBA is proposing an increase from 44 games between 50 to 50
right now. They announced a few players back in December, then went completely silent for weeks. No updates, no details, nothing. Then, out of nowhere, they dropped tournament dates for Tokyo, March 26th through April 4th. But here's what they didn't announce. Venue details, broadcast partner, ticket information, literally any of the basic operational details you'd need to actually run a tournament. Just dates. Who does that? Who promises to pay elite athletes without demonstrating they even have the infrastructure to host games? The whole thing reeks of a money laundering operation disguised as a sports league. I'm not saying it is, but when you announce tournament dates before you announce how people can actually attend or watch those tournaments, red flags start waving. And if Project B is somehow legitimate, they've still got a massive problem. Those Tokyo dates, They conflict directly with the WNBA's proposed new schedule. According to sources close to the CBA negotiations, the WNBA wants to start training camp as early as mid-March. They want to expand from 44 games to somewhere between 50 and 54 games. To add 10 games while also reducing back-to-backs, you need more time. The season has to start earlier and end later. Right now, training camp starts late April. That gives players overseas plenty of time to wrap up and get back. But if camp starts mid-March, suddenly you've got a conflict. And this is where the WNBA owners need to put their foot down. If you choose to play in Project B, fine. That's your decision. But you don't get to show up to training camp 3 weeks late because your Tokyo tournament ran long. You wait, just like every other overseas player who joins their team mid-season. The WNBA already has a grace period system for international players. If you're playing in Europe or Asia and your season runs past the WNBA start date, you can join later, but there are rules. You miss games. You lose practice time. No special treatment. Meanwhile, the WNBA Players Association and the league are at a complete stalemate in CBA negotiations. The union submitted a proposal close to Christmas. $10.5 million salary cap. 30% of league gross revenue. These are massive increases from the current structure. And the owners? Radio silence. They looked at that proposal and said, this isn't serious. This is so far outside the realm of possibility, it doesn't even warrant a response. It's like trying to sell a $10,000 used car and someone offers you $200. You don't counteroffer. You walk away because that person isn't a serious buyer. Here's what makes the owner's silence so telling. That proposal was submitted before Christmas. We're now well into January, and according to sources, the league still hasn't responded. That's not because they're carefully crafting a thoughtful counter. That's because they're waiting for the players to come back with something realistic. And the longer this drags out, the more leverage the owners gain, because the current CBA expires soon and players need a new deal in place before the season starts. So let's connect all these threads, because this is where the story gets fascinating. You've got Unrivaled collapsing under terrible ratings and a potential ownership change. You've got Project B, which may or may not even exist, announcing dates that conflict with the WNBA's proposed schedule. And you've got WNBA players demanding record compensation while simultaneously trying to preserve their ability to play in these competing leagues. Something has to give. These three visions for women's basketball cannot all coexist. If the WNBA moves to a mid-March start with a 54-game season ending in November, that kills the current overseas model. Players won't have time to spend 4 months in Europe or Asia and then come back for training camp. The calendar simply doesn't work anymore. And if the WNBA is paying max players somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 per season, suddenly the financial incentive to play overseas diminishes significantly. You're not risking injury in Turkey for an extra $100,000 when you're already making $500,000 in the States. That's the WNBA's power play here. Extend the season, increase the salaries, make it financially stupid for players to do anything except focus solely on the W. It's brilliant, really. A power move disguised as player-friendly expansion. But the players want both. They want the longer season with higher salaries and the freedom to play wherever else they choose. They want their cake and want to eat it too. And the owners are saying, pick one. Longer, more lucrative season that demands your full attention, or shorter season with lower salaries that leaves room for side projects. You can't have both. Look at what's happening with Unrivaled's on-court product. Players are clearly fatigued. They're playing year-round with no break, and it shows. The three-point shooting is abysmal, turnovers are constant, the energy isn't there. Now imagine that same fatigue carrying over into the WNBA season. Breanna Stewart or Nafisa Collier showing up to camp in mid-March after grinding through Unrivaled from January to early March, then trying to maintain peak performance through November? It's not sustainable. The human body needs rest. Elite athletes need an off-season to recover. Train properly, let injuries heal. But the financial pressure to play year-round is so intense that players are sacrificing long-term health for short-term paydays. That's where the WNBA's proposal becomes interesting from a player welfare perspective. If you extend the season and increase salaries significantly, you remove that financial pressure. Players can afford to take the off-season off. They can rest, recover, come back fresh. But that requires trusting the WNBA will actually follow through on salary increases. And given the league's history of broken promises and financial instability, that trust doesn't exist yet. Which brings us back to that unanswered proposal. 30% of gross revenue, 10.5 million salary cap, and the owners haven't responded. Here's what's actually happening behind closed doors. The owners are waiting to see what happens with the next media rights deal. The current deal with ESPN and CBS expires soon, and they're negotiating a new package that could be worth significantly more. If that deal comes in strong, if the WNBA secures $200 to $300 million annually from broadcast partners, then a 30% revenue share becomes feasible. The math works. Owners can pay what players are asking and still profit. But if the deal disappoints, if they only secure a modest increase, the players' proposal is dead on arrival. The money simply isn't there. And this is where Unrivaled's collapse becomes a major problem for the players' negotiating position. One of their arguments has been, we have alternatives. We can play in Unrivaled, Project B, overseas. We don't need the WNBA as much as they need us. But if Unrivaled is pulling 70,000 viewers and facing cancellation, that argument falls apart. If Project B is a scam that never runs a tournament, that argument falls apart. If overseas leagues cut budgets, that argument falls apart. Suddenly, the WNBA is the only game in town. And when you're the only option, you have all the leverage. The owners know this. They're watching Unrivaled crater, watching Project B with skepticism, seeing overseas leagues struggle. And they're thinking, why rush to meet demands when alternatives are evaporating? This is hardball negotiation, and players are losing leverage by the day. So what happens next? The WNBA announces a new media rights deal in the next 2 months. If it's strong, you'll see a new CBA come together quickly. Salaries increase significantly, but the season expands to 50-plus games with an earlier start. Players choose between the WNBA and side leagues, and most choose the WNBA because the money finally justifies it. But if the deal disappoints, we're headed for a labor dispute. Players refuse a CBA that doesn't meet demands. Owners refuse to pay what revenue doesn't support. We could see a delayed season start or worse. Either way, Unrivaled is probably done after year 3. Those ratings are unsustainable, and TNT will exercise that opt-out. Project B will either reveal itself as legitimate or fade away entirely, and the WNBA will emerge as the dominant force in women's basketball, for better or worse. The question is whether they'll use that dominance to actually take care of players or continue underpaying talent while executives pocket profits. Because if the WNBA eliminates all competition and still refuses to pay fairly, that tells you everything about their priorities. The next few months will determine the future of women's professional basketball for the next decade. And right now, it's anyone's game